Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. This video took me quite some time to make and I hope it turns out well. But quick disclaimer before we get into this video. Because my 3DS system broke down, I was forced to use emulation to record gameplay. And I don't endorse piracy of any software via emulation. This is why you'll see my goofy pink cursor around here and there. With that being said, this is around 20 hours of recorded footage and editing here. I hope you all enjoy. With that being said, let's get on with the video. Pokemon X, my first Pokemon game that was truly my own. While I did play Pokemon Black 2 before, that was on my own game. I remember playing this game like crazy, and with potential remakes and a new game featuring Kalos around the corner, I decided to take a trip down memory lane to this forgotten generation of Pokemon. Here we meet Professor Sycamore of Kalos. Like all the other games before, he gives us a basic rundown. You've seen it all before. And like every masculine man out there, I choose to play the female character because the male Pokemon is so boring and bland. So the female one is the only one that feels like an actual person. I named my character, and here I chose Sylvia as per a recommendation from someone in a Discord VC with me at the time. And Professor Sycamore, he allows us to continue on our merry way into the world of Pokemon. Like the start of every Pokemon game, I went to the mirror and changed my clothes to start my adventure. My memory isn't the greatest of this game, but I'll try and see how much stuff I can remember as we go along. Next up, we go downstairs and my mother tells us that she got a letter from the professor. When we go outside, we see our neighbors, Caleb and Shara, and they tell us that we're gonna go get our first Pokemon. How exciting. We walk down the shortest route in any Pokemon game to make it to Aquacore Town. We get called over to the table where all our friends are at, and we have some nice little banter, and we are introduced to two new characters, Tierno and Trevor. Two more characters that act as rivals. Now, I'm going to take this time to talk about something which I believe can be a flaw or a bonus, if you will. I believe that these characters represent one aspect of a previous rival's being. As in, Tierno represents a bubbly, silly little guy. Caleb represents the one who wants to get stronger. Trevor is a nerd who wants to learn more about Pokemon and fill out the Pokédex, but doesn't really do that much battling. And Shauna is the one who has the deep conversations with the main character and the more emotional moments at this point in the story. And here we get to choose our nickname. Obviously, I choose mine as Yeetmaster21 because that's the name of this channel. Please like and subscribe. Now, while having these characters as an archetype may seem good, this leads to less development for each one of them and honestly leads to them being more forgettable and less memorable than any other rival in any other Pokemon game. And I really think that's what is detrimental to this game, as the story doesn't really evolve around these characters, but instead it revolves around these characters taking a secondary step behind you, as opposed to other rivals being more involved in the story Here we get to choose our starters. I really like the X and Y starters. They have all cool evolutions, but since I haven't played with Fennekin as much, I decided to choose it for this run. Froakie is also really cool, and Chespin's alright, I guess. But yeah. Anyways, we have our first rival fight with Shauna, who chooses a type we're strong against. This leads to us easily defeating her real fast, since Firen over here already knows his elemental move. While Calum over here is explaining how to catch a Pokemon, let me explain some of the issues that I've encountered so far and what's so frustrating in the overall topic of this video. Let's talk about the 3D models. In my opinion, I just think some of them just don't look as good as the black and white sprites. There's no character to them, they look so desaturated, they're so bland. I don't think they're ugly, I just don't think they look as good. Another thing about this game is that it's the first Pokemon game to have a universal release date, as opposed to the other games where it would release in Japan earlier and then in the US and in the EU. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I'll get into this later on. This is also the first game to not get a second entry into its series, like how when Ruby and Sapphire got Emerald. But while some may say that Gen 5 did the same, Gen 5 is unique where it got direct sequels and not a third definitive version, neither of which XY got. A Pokemon Z would have been so good for X and Y, however it just never came to fruition, and that's unfortunate. And I'll get into more of that as we go on, especially in the endgame. Anyways, we head into the forest. It's basically just Viridian Forest again, and Shauna asks if she wants to follow us, and we agree, and we basically just have to go to the other side, and once we're on that side, we all walk into the city together. As we make our way to the Santaluni City Gym, it's blocked by a skater who challenges us. Once we beat her, she gives us a pair of skates for ourselves, allowing us to move much faster. This is the only game where skates appear, so while I do prefer the bike, the skates are pretty fun to just run around it. You can do this thing where you just like tap the button to gain maximum acceleration, and you just keep on doing that and you move really fast. This is our first gym. The puzzle is quite easy. If you follow the steps right, then there's only one forced battle until you get to the gym leader. I decided not to catch to a second Pokemon as I wanted some sort of challenge. Now once you have defeated that trainer, all that stands in front of you before you get your first badge for Pokemon X is Viola herself, the gym leader. Viola uses bug type Pokemon, so if you chose Fennekin, then this fight shouldn't be too difficult. However, she does start the fight off with a Surskit that will use Water Sport, making fire moves pretty ineffective against Vivian. So if you did choose Chespin or Froakie, then you might have more of a hard time against it. However, she still should not be that difficult. When you have defeated her, you get the bug badge from her. It has a nice design. You also get the TM for infestation, which is pretty neat. Well, that's like a tenth of the game done so far. So far it just feels like an ordinary Pokemon game. So all we can do is just continue forward. See if anything does change or is out the ordinary. Once we have defeated the gym leader, we can progress forward and encounter someone named Olivia. She recognizes us as someone who works for Professor Sycamore and gives us this Titan community-shattering item, also known as the EXP share. One of the most decisive items in the Pokemon community. Why is that? First, we have to talk about how it works. Whenever your Pokemon defeats something, it gets XP. But now, with it on, everything in your party gets XP. Here, my Fennekin named Firen is evolving. That's really cool, you know? But honestly, I didn't really get a chance to even like feel for the Fennekin. But you know, it's what it is. So now, as we watch as my Fennekin evolves, and yeah, oh, wow! I can't believe it. It turned into a femboy. I mean, a Braixen. It's a Braixen. Yeah, that's what it did. Yep. Anyways, we're gonna continue on our merry way here, and we meet these two. I'm going to be so real with you all. I have no idea what their name is. I literally just played this game, so I'm just gonna call them Blonde Boy and Purple Girl for the rest of this video. They do some cute meta commentary here where they talk about how the fairy type has completely annihilated the competitive scene for Pokemon Generation 6, and they tell us to go to the lab in Lumio City. Oh yeah, that's right. They added a new type into this game that hasn't been seen since Generation 2 when they added the Dark type to balance out. The Fairy type was just added to balance out the Dragon types, and I'll get more into that later in the video. I meet the professor in the laboratory, and he battles me. Now, I utterly annihilate him. It's not even close. Like, he gets absolutely destroyed by me here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, that's really it. I just destroy him. He's really easy boss fight. He just uses all three of the Kanto starters, and yeah. Once we have utterly destroyed him, he offers us another starter, which is pretty cool. But I think this highlights another problem I have with X and Y. It bends over way too much to Gen 1. Like a lot. Why the hell does the Gen 1 starters get Megas, but not the Gen 6 ones? Hell, in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the Gen 3 starters get their own Megas, but not the Gen 6. Pokemon ZA better give us something for the Gen 6 starters. It has to give us something for Gen 6. I will be so immeasurably disappointed if they do not give us anything. Oh yeah, I should talk about Megas, because those exist. I love Megas, like, a lot. They're such a cool idea where a Pokemon temporarily evolves into a stronger version of itself and has these increased stats. Looks cooler and everything, but I also feel like it's a missed opportunity. Some Pokemon that could have been Megas missed out. Like I said before, the starters, they absolutely had no right to not have Megas. They needed Megas. Like, it's an actual crime. Even in Sun and Moon, the starter Pokemon get their own unique Z moves, but in X and Y, the starters are just, they exist. But it honestly just sucks. Some Pokemon just deserve that love. Even the legendary Pokemon don't have a unique form. Like Yveltal and Xerneas and Zygarde don't do anything for a majority of the game. But one can only hope that they'll get the same amount of appreciation as Palkia and Dialga did in Legends Arceus. But besides that, here we get introduced to the game's totally not villain, Lysander. He's such an upstanding dude, like he just wants to make the world a better place, you know? Without all this disgusting filth, whatever that's supposed to mean. But he just wants to make it a great place. What could that mean? I don't know. But surely there's no evil intentions behind such great goals, right? We go to the cafe with Caleb and we meet Lysandre and Diantha. These two characters are literally the most polar opposite obvious characters to exist. Like everyone knows Diantha has some important role to play. It could be an Elite Four member, it could be something, but it's a champion, alright? It's pretty obvious to figure that out. Lysandre over here it's so easy to figure out that he's the villain and the leader of Team Flare, especially when you get later on into the game. Like, come on, when you meet the first Team Flare member in that cave, it's so obvious to make the connection. They have the same shade of red. It's uncanny how similar it is. Now, something I can give this game credit for is the stuff that it introduces. This game introduces horde battles, which can be summoned in a variety of ways. The most common way to use is honey in a grass field, which is summon a bunch of enemies or Pokemon or whatever in that grass field. And this can make shiny hunting or hunting for a rare Pokemon so much easier. And it's a great thing to add. Later in the game, you have to do this quest where you have to help this man get his Furfrou back, and it just hides in the garden. And it's up to you and Shauna to help get it back. It's in a grid-like pattern, and you have to get it go in the middle, right? So you can make Shauna say any of the four or five grid areas, so you can make her block the Furfrou from moving in that direction. And it's some trial and error to figure out where the Furfrou's supposed to go. It's nothing crazy. It's not that difficult. See, one issue I have with this game is that there are many moments like these in the game where one character pretends to have this sappy moment with you where they pretend they went on you with this glorious adventure. However, I never felt like that actually happened because we don't interact with most of these characters for that long of a time. And Pokemon games aren't really known for their length or for necessarily their storytelling. However, I do think Black and White did sort of remedy that, where there was a story to tell, and I feel like there's one here too, and that story just not told properly because there's so many characters to balance and bounce off of. It doesn't really create the environment for your character to interact with these other characters because they're always in some random place and they're always like this. I feel like this game could have been so much better in its storytelling if that it was just one character. In fact, you're forced to do double battles against multiple of these characters with another character. And I feel like that really takes away from the other characters. Later on, you get to these segments where you get to ride Rhydon around into like these mountainous areas. And it's pretty cool actually, because there's more segments like this later in the game. Do I think they are a pace breaker? Not really. But I do think the amount of Pokemon you encounter on these are super annoying. So you should get repels because oh my god, you could not go 10 steps without encountering something, and it really is annoying. But other than that, there's also the Mamoswine part, but And if you can't tell so far, I'm just trying to stall because we have not gone to the second gym so far, and this is 3 hours of recording so far. This makes up almost a majority of all the recording time, and that's crazy to me. There is such a pacing issue in this game that I could make that its own video, to be honest. There's so many little things, like especially after the second gym, where you just speed run through gyms until you get to the 6th gym, and then it becomes another slog again. But the second gym is just not excusable. There is so much stuff you have to do in order to get to even challenging the dude, and it's crazy. Like, getting to the city itself is a lot of work. There's no quest to actually go to the gym, but getting to the city is the real hard part. There is this unique cave though that's not really seen anywhere else in the game, where you have this unique perspective on your character and you run through this very claustrophobic looking cave while Pokemon jump out at you through either the ground, the ceiling, or from these shadows. I think it's super cool. However, I wish this was actually most of the caves in this game. I feel like it could have been super unique to Here we have our first encounter with the main villain, Grunt. They just use the generic evil Pokemon. There's nothing really crazy. Like, they use Houndoom, Houndour, and all these other Pokemon. They're just like dark type of evil poison Pokemon, right? There's nothing crazy about them. But here is where when I first played this game, I was like, wait a second. These guys look like they're related to Lysandra. Does that mean he's a bad guy? No, it couldn't be. How could that be? And with all of that done, you're finally standing before him, Grant, the man himself. He only has 2 Pokemon like the last gym leader, but I think he's actually somewhat difficult. I think the way especially if you chose Fennekin, because fire type does not go well here. However, I didn't have that much hard time with this one because I used the cheesiest strategy possible. However, it is what it is. Don't hate the players, hate the game, am I right? Anyways, yeah, that's really it for this. He's not that difficult of a gym leader. I don't think any of the gym leaders are that difficult, but that's a point I will get to later. Congratulations, you got yourself the rock badge, and from here, the game has just begun. The gyms in Pokemon are the most defining part for a lot of people, a true test of skill and strategy throughout the series. Some are much more memorable than others. However, in X and Y, I think all the gyms for the most part are piss easy. Like, come on. They use a max of 3 Pokemon. Wolfric, the 8th gym, he only uses 3 Pokemon. What is this? And none of the Pokemon they use are megas, not a single one. No gym leader has a mega Pokemon. Even Corina doesn't even use her Mega Lucario that you fight her with after the gym battle to get your Mega Ring. In fact, we don't even get a single Mega fight until the final Lysandre fight and Champion Diantha. It's criminal how Megas are so overhyped in the Pokemon community, yet so underutilized in the actual games from where they come from. Let's look at one of the teams here. We'll look at Valerie, the 6th gym leader. She has 3 Pokemon, 2 with 4 moves and 1 with 3, and all around at level 40. And none of them have any items. The only counter she has against poison is Mawile, but if you have a fire attack, then she can't do anything. Her Mr. Mime can be annoying with the setup reflect or light screen, so in my opinion, they should be swapped. I think Mr. Mime should go first. All leaders in Pokemon X get 2 potions if I recall correctly, but most of their moves don't allow them to be defensive against more than 2 types, so you might as well just spam the same move over and over and over again, which makes these battles unintuitive and kinda boring, and not the test of skill that they should be. Overall, with this segment, what my main point is that there's no point in the game where you feel like you've actually been walled. I remember in Pokemon Black and White getting destroyed by Elysia and Ghetsis many times, but there's no battle in X and Y which actually seems to be getting the best of me, which is unfortunate. One thing I will compliment the gym for is their use of the unique Kalo Pokemon, which sounds odd. However, keep in mind, Generation 6 adds in the least amount of Pokemon in the entire series, with only 72. In comparison, Generation 2 added 251 new Pokemon, and Generation 7 added 86 new Pokemon. So I'm glad to see at least one of these new Pokemon getting added to a team in any of the gym team leaders. The story of Pokemon X and Y is oddly convoluted and simple at the same time. I believe this is where the game disappointed me the most. There's so much potential to make a brilliant story about loss and acceptance, but instead we get this really emotional slideshow near the end of the mid-game and expect to go crazy about it. Sure, AZ does appear more later and gives us more context, but I believe instead of this one lore dump, we should encounter AZ more spread out throughout the entire game and witness his capture by Team Flare and actually have some emotional relationship to this guy before we find out about how his horrible backstory and how it could give us a better perspective on what his story actually means. There had to be some plan with this character, because honestly it just feels so random that it's just this tall 7-foot dude you just meet captured and he just lectures you about his past. That's pretty much it. I believe it was trying to point back to Black and White storyline with the kings and whatnot, but hardly any of that is built on, and there is no reason to care about AZ other than the fact that his Pokemon died. But for what it was, this could have been a really emotional story and one of the deepest stories in Pokemon, besides the Mystery Dungeon games of course, that we could have ever gotten. And it's such missed potential that I'll get back to this once we get to the ending of this video, but it really frustrates me just like playing this game and seeing this and seeing what it could have been. I really loved Pokemon X and Y. Despite my negative remarks on the game before, I had a lot of fun playing them, even now. But like I said before, there's just so many little things that drive me crazy about this game. The camera controls of Lumio City suck. The rolls of the legendary Pokemon suck. Lysandre sucks. The gyms suck. The lack of new Pokemon don't necessarily suck, but it's a little annoying. The megas are underutilized, and all the lost potential this game had. Let me go into more depth about how I feel about each of these specifically. Starting in Lumio City, you have no control where your camera goes, so when you move around large places in Lumio City, you're at the mercy of whatever direction the camera sets you in. And this is exemplified by the Looker postgame questline, where you can just keep walking into that stupid building over and over and over again, and you're trying to leave, but the alleyway is just too short now. Oh my god. Anyways, yeah. The role of the legendary Pokemon. Don't even get me started. Well, actually, you guys clicked on this video for a reason. You're letting a 16-year-old rant about his opinions. So, let's start about how the legendaries aren't even alive until you meet them. That's right. They're just in this dormant vegetable state until you just get there and you catch them. That's it. They're just a device for the evil character to get their goals. And while that can be said for any other game in this series, there's just some more nuance in those other games. In Black and White, N wants to use the opposite legendary because of his ideals or truths. In Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, Cypress wants to use the legendaries to create a new world where he is God. At least Dialga and Palkia show their resolve by trying to resist Cypress. Even Giratina shows that he cares about the world somehow by taking Cypress to the Distortion Realm, where he can be truly alone as he did and as he wanted. But in X and Y, Xerneas and Yveltal just exist. And oh my god, oh my god, Zygarde is probably the worst example of this. Zygarde is just terrible in this story. He's not even in the story. It's just so bad. It's like he's so bad. It's actually making me mauled right now. He's supposed to be the head of the trio, the Pokemon of order, but no. He's just chilling in some stupid cave in the post game. Maybe they wanted to set him up for some Kyurem nonsense like they did in Black and White 1. However, X and Y, Kalos itself was never touched after these games. Hell, the anime did such a great job of portraying Zygarde and representing its ideas and how it acts. In Ultra Sun and Moon, for Christ's sake, they have a whole quest about Zygarde, more than his actual game that he's from. Oh my god. I'm sorry. It just makes me so mad. It's just I don't know. It's just so disappointing, you know. Lysandre as a character is still an enigma to me. His motivations are never explained properly, and I just don't see the foundation for them. In X, he uses the ultimate weapon to give eternal life to everyone so that they can see the world rot. But in Y, he wants to use the weapon to just straight up kill everyone. I don't get it. I've already talked about the gym, so I won't go back into those. The lack of new Pokemon is something that, while I don't actually mind, there could have been more. And I get that this is the first 3D mainline Pokemon game, and making new models for everything, and the new ones would take a lot more time. Megas are also really disappointing. In fact, I think all gimmicks in Pokemon have been disappointing. While I think Megas are the least so, I feel their incorporation in the game is also the least. Maybe there's a correlation between that. Who knows? I just hope Megas are fixed in the future, because let's be real. We all saw the trailer, right? Megas are obviously coming back. And as for the potential, here is where I throw away my script and I will just now rant for 10 minutes straight about why I think this game could have been so much better than it was. Alright? This was my first Pokemon game, as I've mentioned in the beginning of the video. And honestly, I believe that it could have been so much better. I loved this game when it first came out. But then I played Black 2 and White 2 again. I played newer Pokemon games, and it's just in this weird middle ground of being there but not there, you know? The music is amazing. I think this game is overhated for no particular reason. I believe that this game does so many things right that previous Pokemon games don't do. I think the XP share is a great idea that's butchered in Sword and Shield. And I just wish that there was more in this game. Of course, I get that this game was meant to be a lot of people's first Pokemon game. It was where Pokemon was trying to be international rather than being some pseudo niche thing like how it tried to be in Red and Blue or Black and White, where it would release first in Japan and then over here and then in Europe. None of that just makes sense to me. However, one thing I do wish this game did right was its story. It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, I know I've already talked about the story literally minutes ago. However, there's just something about it that it's there. It's there. There is story, and it's so close, but it's not realized, and it sucks because I've seen videos where people make a definitive Pokemon Z game for X and Y, and it's there. It's all there. None of these elements are added in these videos. It's elements that already exist, but none of it's done properly in X and Y, and it's baffling. It really is. I wish that this game could have been something else, and I'm pretty sure everyone else did too. But for what it is, I think this game was a step in the right direction for Pokemon. And I know a lot of people will hate me for saying that, but I genuinely do believe that this game was not as good as Black 2 and White 2, but almost as good as it. It was better. People would have a completely different opinion on 3D Pokemon. I think this game as a stepping stone almost succeeded. And in any future game, especially Sun and Moon, especially Sword and Shield, I think if this game was different and had the story it was supposed to have and the story it was envisioned to have, I think the future of Pokemon could have looked so much different. Welp, if you've made it this far in the video, I just wanted to say thanks. I really worked hard on this video. And I also want to say thank you to all my friends who helped me out by giving me advice and ideas and chilling out with me when I was recording this video. I hope this video didn't come off like I hated this game. I believe I made my point clear many times that I love this game a lot. But you know what they say, right? If you truly love something, then you hate it. Actually, pretend I didn't say that. This game came out 10 years ago, and I grew up with this game. In fact, I grew up with most of Pokemon. While my content is mainly focused on Terraria and Dark Souls, I really needed to make this video because I just wanted to rant about Pokemon for 40 minutes, to be honest. And it really does make me worried about the way the current games are going. Hopefully Game Freak listens to us, because I remember going to Toys R Us with my mom to buy this game, ancient times. But that's a memory today that most people won't even experience, and that's kind of scary, to be honest. But who knows? We hopefully have Legends ZA to look forward to. Maybe one day we can finally look back upon another Pokemon game and say, yes, I love that game. It's great. Maybe one day we can enjoy Pokemon once more. How's that? So, my name is EatMaster21. If you like this video, hit that like button, press subscribe, and until then, boys and girls, peace!